Hello and welcome to another installment of At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a platform where we will learn from people who come from different walks of life, careers, and experiences, but all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of saying yes to the unexpected turns of their lives. And they are now using the power of their voice or podium to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium is the intersection of art, culture, and big thoughts wrapped up in good old-fashioned conversation. Today, I'm thrilled and humbled to share the podium with Cynthia Besteman. Born in Seattle, Cynthia moved to New York City in the 1990s and worked as an actress on and off Broadway for 10 years before checking out the real estate scene and quickly became one of the top brokers in the city. After receiving a breast cancer diagnosis in 2011, Cynthia's successful career in the cutthroat world of New York City real estate came to a skidding halt. While undergoing treatment, one of her first actions was to toss out all the beauty products containing unsafe chemicals and synthetic fragrances, leaving her medicine cabinet bare. She dove into the world of natural skincare, learning everything she could about essential oils and other natural ingredients that work effectively to nourish, cleanse, and hydrate without causing harm. Cynthia learned that there are key botanicals and herbs that can alleviate and treat problems for any skin type or age. She drew upon this, along with her desire to give back, and established Violets Are Blue in 2015. She used her knowledge and passion for naturally derived skincare ingredients to formulate a consciously produced line of products, each one a true labor of love. In addition to developing new products for the signature and beloved lines, Cynthia provides select patients with a gifted package of beloved products upon their first day of chemotherapy. She is also proud to have created a company that supports women helping women, with 10% of the purchase price of all products going towards skincare donations for cancer patients. Since its inception, Violets Are Blue has been awarded Best in Show by the Indie Beauty Expo, Best Brand with a Mission by Sophie Uliano's Gorgeously Green Beauty Awards, Best of from the Beauty Shortlist, and Cynthia has been featured in top magazines such as Women's Day, Self, Allure, Organic Spa and Health Magazine, just to name a few. Violets Are Blue operates under the philosophy that women, particularly those over 40, are better than beautiful. Cynthia, welcome to At the Podium.
Hello, Patrick. Oh my God, can I hire you to do all of my intros?
Listen. I have Zoom. We'll travel.
Oh my God, that is like and your voice, you should do voiceovers. That was incredible.
Thank you, and I'm so glad that we were able to make this work out today. I know we have been like ships passing in the night in the spa industry for the past couple of years, but you and I go way back to the early 90s. And I don't know if you know this, Cynthia, because I was in my first year at Circle in the Square in New York, where I was studying, and you had just graduated a few years before I got there, correct?
Yes, I think I was 2 or 3 years ahead of you. Must have been 2 years ahead of you.
Yes, because Ed Berkeley, who we worked with and who recently passed away, which was really tough for a lot of us, had formed a theater company called Willow Cabin that was based upon the Willow Cabin monologue from As You Like It, correct?
Cabin at your door. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was it. And so you guys were doing a play. You were doing these 3 Thornton Wilder one-act plays in New York, and one of the actors dropped out. Ed comes up to me one day at Circle. He's like, "Hey, are you going to be around over Thanksgiving?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be here." He's like, "You want to just like, step into this play with some of the other Circle graduates?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" Which turned into a year of our lives almost, Cynthia.
A year of our life. Well, Patrick, that is so funny because, I was asked to play That was my first show with Willow Cabin. And it was sort of like, for people, just so you know, like that was the be all end all. Once you graduated from Circle in the Square, was to be asked to join Willow Cabin. And they had me in this part that had no lines. And at the first read through, the woman whose role I ended up playing had to back out. And they were like, well, let's give it to Cynthia. And it was like, still to this day, one of the most career defining roles of my life. That was one of my best theatrical experiences.
It was, hands down. And I just remember you were so good in that play. And I remember in the first, it was three one-act plays by Thornton Wilder. And it was sort of, Thornton was having a sort of a rebirth in the early 90s in New York. And I remember in that first one-act play, you had to age like 50 years. And it was unbelievable to watch you do that.
I still have neck issues from that, because I did like this, I emulated my grandmother who had, you start shaking your head. There's a name for it, some sort of a palsy. Yes. So I have that, and I still have neck issues from it. What's amazing is, the people who were in that show are still my closest friends today. And then it's like seeing someone like you who I haven't seen in years, but like anytime I get an email or a connection online, it's like, oh, Patrick, it's like you're like family. It's like this bond that we've been through something that no matter how much time passes, it's like, just in the pre-interview, it's like it's just like no time has passed whatsoever, and it just makes me so happy to see you. I'm gonna get emotional.
I know, I got really emotional when you sent your bio. Because, when you get into your life, you don't keep up, and you sort of miss people and you hear things, but then to see what you wrote about that moment in your life, I was in my office and I was like, I had to take a moment.
Oh, Patrick.
And what got me was when you talked about in the bio, which I've read, that, you do this work to support women, supporting women, and that you give back 10% of your sales. And that just touched a part in my heart, because cancer has touched so many people's lives. Mm-hmm. And, I've lost friends, I've lost family, I've had friends like you going through it. I have friends going through, treatment now. And it's, those acts of generosity make a difference for people when they are going through this.
Well, and it's sort of like what you're doing with this platform. I think the key is for anyone who's going through it to hear from people who have gone through it, to help them understand what's happening to them. And sort of, it's funny, another mutual friend of ours, Angie, was diagnosed with breast cancer 6 months before I was. So she was the first person that I called when I was diagnosed. And she said, I'll be your flashlight. And so what you're doing with this platform is helping people shine the light on whatever it is that they're dealing with. To help guide them through their issues. And that's what this world needs. And it's, it's like, it's just so funny. I just always think I could be doing more. And it's like, I can do what I can do, based on my background. It's like, there's, I'm a, actress and real estate agent. So it's not like I can go out there and cure anything, but at least I can, make people who are going through it feel a little bit better. And, that's what I'm doing now. Hopefully it will grow into something bigger, and we do have the retreats that we do, but it's about community. And I think especially in these last couple of years, community is what is needed in times like these. And I think that's what you're doing with your platform, which is really amazing.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, Cynthia, is to create a space for people to come. And I always say this is a judgment-free zone, and this is about people telling their stories, because that's where the empathy begins,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. You come from an acting background, and as actors, we are so taught to be in tune with our bodies. It's a huge part of our training. And I thought, I've never asked anyone who's had this journey of cancer personally, when was the moment that you knew something was off within your body, which was your instrument?
Yeah. Do you know what's weird, Patrick, is I didn't know, like, it's weird because I was really stressed out in my job. At that point, I was a real estate broker. I was pretty, not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty successful. But with that success came a lot of stress. And I'm the type of person, and it's sort of ingrained in us with acting, like, is this going to be your last job? Is this going to be your last deal? So I was always worried about, is this my last deal? What happens if, nobody hires me again? And then the negotiating factor was really hard for me. I wanted everybody to be happy. So it's like, I wanted you to ask this price. I wanted you to pay it. No issues come up. And I was always just in this, like my stomach was just in knots 24/7. And I remember waking up one morning and just thinking something has got to change. Like, I can't go on like this. And I just, like, 2 months later, I went for my just annual mammogram sonogram, and that's where they discovered it. And I feel like my body manifested something because my heart and my mind weren't connected. So my body was like, okay, if you're not going to make a change, we're going to make it for you. So I knew I had to make a change, but I didn't physically feel a change within my body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. What was that moment like, if you can recall, when you received the news from your doctor? And I ask the question, Cynthia, because in so many of our lives, and I get so many messages from people that we have that moment when the news that's coming isn't good, and then we still have to find a way to wake up and
Yeah.
face
Um,
it.
it's interesting because I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the moment. It's like it happened yesterday. It's like in some ways it happened, 10 years ago. In some ways it happened just yesterday. Like, I remember exactly what I was wearing. I remember what purse I had. I remember how my hair was done. And what's interesting is, so in the mammogram sonogram part, the mammogram didn't pick up my cancer, but the sonogram did. So I always advocate for people to ask their doctors to give them a prescription for both. And then the doctor, as he was looking at it, started asking me questions about my business and travels. And I was like, okay, something is not right here. This is not how it normally goes. And he said, I see something. We're going to biopsy it. And I was quite lucky because this was a Thursday. He was going on vacation the following Tuesday. So he said, come in first thing tomorrow before we open. We're going to biopsy this immediately, and then we'll get the results back on Monday. So I went in that morning, he biopsied. And then I remember saying to him, do you think this is something to worry about? And I'll never forget the look on his face. Like, it was like debating, how do I handle this? And he just said, I can say with almost 99.9% certainty that we're looking at a malignancy. And it was like, whoosh. Like, I just remember it was like all of the blood. I was standing up in his doorway, and I remember all of the blood just literally dropping down to my stomach. It was like if you're on a roller coaster and you're just going over the part where you start to go down. That's the exact feeling that I had. And he's like, but we won't know until we get the results. And I remember leaving, like, I'm crying, him giving me tissues, him giving me a hug, and then said, I'll let you know first thing on Monday. And I remember walking down Park Avenue in my little real estate outfit and just looking at everybody going, can they tell? It was like my mind and my body divorced. It's like I felt like a lover had betrayed me in the most horrific way, and I felt detached from my body. And I remember walking down Park Avenue, and it felt like slow motion. It was like the sky didn't look the same blue, the buildings didn't look the same, people didn't look the same. And as people were rushing by me, I just felt like I had this big neon sign on me yelling, cancer, cancer, cancer. But what was good about that was I had the weekend to work through everything. I actually, interesting fact, I took our friend Linda Powell out to look at apartments that weekend. So it was great to be with a friend. It was great to sit down and talk with her. And she was really supportive. Like, she's the type of friend that you want in your corner when you're going through something. So by the time I got the call on Monday that it was in fact malignant, I was prepared and I was ready for action mode. And that's what I went into on that Monday. I had all of my films together, everything together, to literally go from, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to, okay, let's handle this.
I think that feeling that you describe, of that moment right before the roller coaster drops, I think that's the feeling that people can really identify with.
And that feeling never leaves you. Like, you go back to that day. I don't know about other cancer survivors, but you think about that day in random moments, and on your, what's called your cancerversary, you think about that. And that feeling sort of comes rushing back. Or anytime you have a little scare, when you go through that, you have PTSD, and anytime you have a stomach ache or you have a headache that lasts a little bit longer, that same feelings comes rushing back. And over time, you get used to dealing with it, but it never fully goes away. And that feeling is ingrained in your body, in your DNA from that point on.
What was your treatment like? You were diagnosed in 2015.
No, diagnosed in 2011.
2011.
Um, and I was we launched the company in 2015, officially launched. I sort of started playing around with it in 2013. But it's interesting because I was very lucky, because had I been diagnosed a year earlier, I would have had to have chemo, radiation, lumpectomy, or mastectomy. But I was diagnosed at a time where they started doing this test called the Onco score, where they literally took your tumor. And so I had surgery, I had a lumpectomy. And I did the Goldilocks thing. I spoke to 3 different doctors. One said double mastectomy and chemo, like hardcore. One said lumpectomy, chemo, and radiation. And then the third one, who I ended up going with, said lumpectomy, let's do the Onco score, and then see what we do. So the Onco type takes your tumor and runs it through all of these genetic profiles, and then gives you a score from 1 to 100. Your score comes back from 20 or under. They recommend radiation and then this pill that you take called tamoxifen for 5 to 10 years. And that's if your tumor is hormonally driven. And then from 20 to 30, it's a gray area. And then 30 up, chemo is the best way to go. And then hormone treatment or whatever. But so in my case, chemo would have been more detrimental than beneficial to me. So I had the score of 11, and I was like really upset because I wanted a 10 or below. I'm an overachiever. And so I remember saying to my doctor, can we just do chemo too? And she's like, Cynthia, I would lose my license if somebody knew that I gave you chemo and you were an 11. So I did radiation for 6 weeks and then started on tamoxifen right thereafter. So I, in the terms of the cancer world, I sort of skated through. I had a very good diagnosis from the start.
How did your life change?
Oh man, it's like, how did it not change? First of all, I was convinced that the environment caused my cancer. That's my personal belief. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any scientific proof. But I said to my husband, David, I need to make changes. And he was like, you do whatever you need to do. We were real estate partners. He's like, you handle this. I'm going to handle the business. So I said, I'm going to make some changes in our lifestyle. I had already been a vegetarian, and I exercised and no family history. So that was like the only thing. And I needed to blame it on something. So I changed everything in our apartment, from our shades to our rugs, to our laundry detergent, to our mattress. Everything that came in our house was glass or eco-friendly. So I went overboard. And I also, you go through a period where and this sort of leaves you as time goes on, but you just enjoy every moment and appreciate every moment and appreciate your family. I definitely make some changes in my friend group, friends who I thought would be there for me who weren't. They were easily cast out. And then friends who, like my 2 closest friends now, Fiona and Linda, we were friends, but now it's like they're my family. They're like my sisters. They stepped up for me in a way that I could not believe. And those 2 were really, and David and my family were the ones who really got me through. Look, I'm getting emotional again. Were really the ones that got me through. And so you just sort of you let go of pretenses, and you're sort of like, some things just don't matter. My hair the way my hair looks doesn't matter. It's how do people affect you when you meet them in a positive way? Those are the people to keep in your life. And that's the thing that I think I've kept from that. You fall back into worrying about the minute things that you forget to worry about when you're going through cancer. So I think that's sort of the biggest change for me.
How did you physically handle the treatment? I know radiation can be.
Yeah, I did, knock on wood, I did pretty well. The surgery I sailed through. In fact, I wanted to walk home. I live on 106, and my hospital, Mount Sinai, is on 102nd on the east side. I'm on the west side. And I came out of surgery and I was like, can we walk home through the park? And my mom and sister had flown out and David were there and they were like, no, you did that major surgery. And the healing process was fine. And it honestly, for me, it was just the waiting for tests was like the hardest part. But the treatment, the radiation, going through it, this is going to sound really strange, but that was one of the most, I can't believe I'm saying this. And like, this is so weird to say, but that was one of the happiest times in my life, because I think it was a time where I could solely focus on my well-being, and that people were focused on my well-being, and that you could hand your well-being over to a team. Like, I hired my team as if I were hiring a company, and a CEO and a CFO and a COO, and I put my trust over in them. And I would get up every morning. I was the first radiation appointment of the day, because you have to go at the same time every day for 6 weeks. I would wake up, I would walk through the park, I would get my radiation, which lasted all of 5 minutes. Then I would get my cup of coffee from the vendor outside the hospital, and I would get the New York Post, and I would sit in the park and slowly drink my coffee and read the Post, and then walk home. And then, have a nap. And I would work. I still work through it. I didn't want people at work to know what I was going through, because I didn't want them to think that I couldn't handle things. And so I would do a little bit of work. David would hide my computer, because I would start researching the type of cancer that I had and then be convinced I was going to die. So he's like, okay, this is not good. So I would work for a couple hours, take a nap, and then I would read and watch TV. And it's weird, because nobody expected anything from you, because you were sick and going through treatment. So it was like the weight of the world in some ways was on me, but then in other ways, the weight of the world was lifted. So again, I feel weird saying this, but it was a really good time.
It makes perfect sense. I don't think it's weird at all. And I think, especially if you had been going through a point in your life where you say the head and the heart were not aligned, and then you have this event that happens that forced there to be alignment in order for you to make it through.
Yeah.
And
I feel so weird, and I don't want to be disrespectful of people going through cancer, because I think if I were going through cancer and somebody was like, oh, it was a great time, and I feel so strange, and I've never sort of voiced that before until now, but I feel really strange saying that. But if I'm being 100% honest, that's when I look back on that time, I look back on that fondly in a weird way, because I was being taken care of, and I was always sort of a caregiver to people, I think, and it felt really nice.
Cynthia, after I've graduated from Circle and hung out in New York for a few years, I went and got my MFA from Yale, from the drama school. And the year we graduated was 2001. And so I had just moved back to the city, and then September 11th happened. And I decided with my friend that she and I were going to move to Los Angeles, and I was going to drive my car from New Haven, Connecticut, where it was, to LA. And on the way,
I didn't say, for people who don't know, like, the Yale School of Drama is like the be all end all. It's like the best drama school in the world. So that's that. People need to know how impressive that is. Like, this isn't Circle in the Square, no offense, but Yale School of Drama is like Meryl Streep territory. So I just want to put that out there.
but thank you. But I was driving my car from New Haven to LA. And when I was in New Mexico, I flipped my car over and almost died. 5 times the car flipped. They don't really know how I wrecked my car, but somehow I was on the freeway, the car fishtails. I'm correcting the fishtail, I overcorrect. The car goes the other way on the freeway, hits, if you're ever driving in New Mexico, there are these like shrubberies along the freeway, and the car hits the shrubberies, and that's what made the car flip over and over and over again.
Holy crap. But do you remember the moment? Or
I never passed out. I remember the glass breaking. I remember the airbags coming out. And I remember, because in the movies, how when that happens, the story fades to black, and then you wake up and the person's either in the hospital or the next scene starts. That doesn't happen in real life. I was awake the whole time. So if you're ever in the car that flips over, you're not going to pass out probably, unless something's really. But I had to go home for 3 months because I had to have surgery. physical therapy, the whole thing. But for 3 months, right after I was, I had signed with Abrams Artists, and which was, this a great agency back then. And was with Hardin Curtis. These are great agents in New York and in LA. And right when I was like stepping into my new life as, a Yale graduate, a lot of momentum, I had this really bad car accident that made me go lie in bed for 3 months at my mom's house and recover.
Oh my God, Patrick.
But what you're describing, that moment of it became about something else for you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Did you feel that too? Like you had a time where you could just let go of all your responsibilities and like, it's like, I have to just heal myself. And there's something that to let go of the pressures of the outside world, even though it's the most horrific time for you physically and mentally, there's something about just being able to take that time and just heal and take care of you.
Yeah. Like my mom cooked for me. I had left home when I was 17 to go to college. So it had been, 13 years since I'd really spent any significant time. But I think there is something in that moment when life or circumstances make you stop.
Totally. Oh my God, Patrick, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So when you said that, it struck a chord in me, because I think
you get it.
There are blessings within really when the bad news comes.
How was driving for you after that? When you first got back behind the wheel, how was that?
It was really scary, and I'll tell you something. When I was ready to leave and go back to move to LA, I said, "Well, Mom, let's fly to California and we can buy me a car there." And she's like, "No, we'll buy you a car here and you're driving to California."
Oh, wow.
Which is, if you know my mom, that's kind of how she is. But so I got in the car shaking, but I drove it. But I drove. But I still get a little nervous sometimes. It was not a fun experience. I mean, I don't want to repeat that ever. But yeah.
Holy wow. Wow. And good for your mom. Your mom's a smart lady.
Yeah. Yeah. So I understand when you say that. It's hard because you had a very successful career as an actor. Yeah, I mean, you were doing it.
Yeah.
You were doing it. And then you stepped into this very successful career as a real estate broker in New York City, which is
like, what's wrong with me? Yeah.
like you picked the hardest. It
was stressful to do.
Right.
Sign me up.
But then life had a different plan for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes the struggle is being able to embrace what the new plan is, if it doesn't line up with what you think it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times hindsight 2020 that you go, oh, okay. And, that's something that I say to people a lot as well, be in the trauma, experience it, but also look for what's coming in through the door with the trauma. There's always going to be something that is going to give you an opportunity to turn this into something positive. I mean, not always, it's easy for me to say. I had stage 1 cancer. I'm not a stage 4, person who will most likely die from it. And so I have a lot of empathy for those people. And so I'm always trying to be very careful when I speak about, how cancer for me in the end was a blessing, because cancer isn't a blessing. It's a horrible thing to happen. And there needs to be so much more done in the cancer community for breast cancer, for the stage 4 ladies. So I always say this with like a bit of, I don't know what the right word is, but so I always feel strange saying something great came out of my cancer diagnosis, because there are many women and young women who are literally fighting for their lives that will most likely not survive this disease. And I think that gets lost on people, that there is no stage 5, that stage 4 is it. And there's so much, breast cancer awareness going on. I do one rant every October about that everybody is aware of breast cancer. Everybody has been affected by it, either themselves or a loved one. family member. What there needs to be is more education and more technology and a cure or a treatment for stage 4 women that will keep them alive more than 5 to 10 years. So everything I say is always wrapped around the fact that I'm very aware that a lot more needs to be done in the breast cancer community. That being said, for me, it was life-changing in a positive way. And so I wouldn't change it. I would have liked to have found my true calling a different way. Cancer is a little bit harsh, but I do look back and think, okay, that's the reason why I got it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Because and as I was reading your story, I was like, how in the midst of all of this were you able to even conceive of violets are blue?
It was just, it wasn't even a conception thing. It was, okay, I'm so freaked out. So here's the funny thing. So I changed everything in my apartment and I didn't think about skincare. And I was at the pharmacy. I mean, when I was diagnosed, I did not take it well. And I had to go into therapy, which I wholly advocate for if you're diagnosed or going through something, traumatic. They put me on Klonopin. And so I was at the pharmacy picking up my prescription, and the pharmacist gave this ointment to the woman in front of me and said, "Oh, you rub this on your daughter's forearm," who was a toddler. She was holding her, and it'll go right into her bloodstream, so you don't have to worry about the pill. And I was like, "Oh, wait, what am I putting on my arm that's going into my bloodstream?" So as soon as I got home, I rounded up everything and started Googling the backs and learned that the lemon and the orange and the coconut that were pictured on the front of my products were nowhere in the ingredient deck. And so I started doing a deep dive, because I had the time, into products that were in, quote unquote, clean or natural skincare. And so I couldn't get it anywhere. So I Googled how to make your own organic skincare, and divine intervention. The next night, 10 blocks from my house, a class called Bath and Body University Organic Skincare was starting. So I signed up for it and I went. And you know how I talked about, like, my mind and my body had divorced when I got diagnosed. And it was the first time that I felt, making those products, that I felt like my mind and my body reconnected. Now, I had gone to acupuncture, I had done Reiki, I tried yoga, all this stuff to try and get my body and mind back together. And unintentionally, this was the thing that did it. And I think it was because my artistic self was able to come back in, which I had sort of pushed aside doing real estate. I felt like I became a different person and I lost that side of me. Another whole rabbit hole to go down is, when I was acting, I started having really horrible panic attacks on stage, which is part of the reason why I stopped acting. And I really shunned that life, and pulled away from, everyone at Willow Cabin and all that stuff. And this was a way for me to do something artistically that didn't have to do with anxiety or panic. And so I just did it for me. It was really calming. And then I started doing it for the women that I saw every day. And then my oncology team was commenting, I'm very fair skinned, and I didn't have much burning or blistering. I mean, I did have burning and one little blister, but she said, "Wow, you really handled this beautifully." And I said, "Well, I'm making this stuff." And she said, "Would you ever be interested in making it for the center?" And I sort of laughed, and then I was like, "Wait, are you serious?" And she goes, "Yeah, I mean, we're giving out Aquaphor. We don't want to do that. We want to give a better option, but our funds and our focus is on curing you, not making you look nice." So I said, "Okay, give me some time." And I then started working with a biochemist and a formulator, and she happened to also have a lot of knowledge in the cancer world and cancer research. So I worked on that for 2 years. And then I came back in 2013 with my beloved line, which is the treatment safe line, and launched that there. We donate that to women on their first day of chemo. We've had to pause it with COVID, but we're going to be starting back up this spring. And then from there, our signature line, because women who hadn't had cancer wanted to use stuff. And if it's good for cancer patients, it's even better for those that aren't in treatment. So we launched our signature line in 2015 and formally launched the company. And we're in about 40 and 50 spas and stores throughout the world. And we're at the largest green beauty retailer, Credo Beauty, in the States. And so it's sort of like this thing that just before you know it, it's like, oh, I have this company. Oh, I'm a CEO. Oh, okay. And it was just sort of like just putting one foot in front of the other. here we are.
It's amazing, Cynthia, looking at your life, these really amazing transition points. And I was like, you go from acting to real estate to one of the most hardest industries to penetrate, which is the spa product industry.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
How did you handle those transition points? And I ask because so many people who reach out now to me talk about how they have trouble in those transition points and how the transition doesn't look like they thought it was going to look like, or doesn't feel how they thought would feel, but they feel compelled to go through with it, but they
Yeah.
have regret, or they have anxiety, or they have all these feelings around it. So how have you managed these transitions in your life and still come out with your sense of humor intact and your...
You have to have a sense of humor, and nothing will ever go as you hope it will or you think it will. There's always going to be somebody out there that looks like they're doing it easier and better and faster. It's funny because in all three of my professions, in acting and real estate and the beauty industry, I'm always convinced I'm doing something wrong, because it's like, how did that person go from point A to point Z in half the time and I'm still at point G? In those times, I get a lot of, I'm very competitive, and I get a lot of, how did they do this? Itis. And in those times, I have to just retrain myself to just focus on, why are you doing this, Cynthia? Why did you create these? It's not so that you can beat brand X, Y, or Z. It's so that you can bring really beautiful products to women who are going through treatment, or who are over 40, or who want something that's eco-conscious, and focus on that. What do you want to launch this next year? Focus on those things. Don't focus on what Susie has just launched. Focus on what you want to launch. And if you are authentic in what you are doing, it will work. It may not be as fast as you'd like, but you just got to keep staying in your lane and focus on what you want to do, and really drown out what other people are doing. And that's the only way you're going to survive. But just know that for every one thing that goes right, 4 things are going to go wrong. And it's really about, how do you handle the things that have gone wrong, as opposed to how do you handle the thing that's gone right. And when I first launched, and being dramatic as I am, things would go wrong and I would fall apart, and I would call my mom and say, this is so hard. And I thought the universe was telling me I was supposed to do this. And, why did somebody get launched in this store and I'm not? And this is just too hard. And then one day she just said to me, oh my God, like, if you don't want to do this, if you don't have the chutzpah to be a business founder, then get out. You don't have to do it. If this is too hard, get out. But if you're going to stay in it, you need to put on your big girl pants, face the music, and deal with these things as a CEO would, and get over yourself. And I was like, oh, okay. It was just like, okay, I can do this. I can handle these things. And it wasn't the universe being mean to me or telling me, like, I don't know why I thought that because I went through cancer and decided to do this, that the world was just going to open up to me, and, like someone like QVC was going to call, and Oprah was going to put me in the magazine because I had cancer. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to do the work, and it's not going to be easy. And it was just like a light bulb went off, and it was like, okay, owning a business is hard, and I have to learn how to handle the downs better than I handle the ups.
You talked about timing, and you talked about why things aren't going the way you expect them to go, and why the doors aren't just flying open. And I experienced that in this process with this podcast and this video platform. It's like, why didn't I come to this sooner? Why am I not where that person is? And why hasn't this happened and that happened? And it's literally like,
Yeah.
journey is your journey, and and nobody's journey is easy. That's just the Reader's Digest version that's out there for public consumption. But
Yeah, 100%. And when you meet the people whose journey you think is sailing along, they'll tell you a whole slew of things that you have no clue about. Or they'll say, like, I'm proud of the fact that I've bootstrapped this. Every single dime that's gone into my company has been my own.
yeah,
And, and there's something to say for that. And that means that I'm going to grow a little bit slower, and people have said who Like there's a brand founder who has a brand that I really admire. I won't say her name, but she's an amazing human being and has really been helpful to me. And it's like, well, how did you, in the time that I've been in, by the time she was where I was, she was like in, every single Nordstrom in the world. And she's like, I have investors. I got millions of dollars. And she said, but looking back, I don't know if I would do it that way because I had to give up part of my company and that's part of my soul. So it's like, everybody has a flip side. So that's why you just have to stay and go, I want to do this podcast because I want to do this. I want to learn about these people. I want to discover things. I want to discover things about myself that I haven't dealt with or learned of, and just stay doing it. And it may take, 10 years longer, but it's going to be something that people resonate with more because it's more genuine.
Sweat equity is real.
Yeah. And it resonates more with people.
Yeah. And it's almost like a divine law.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you reap what you sow,
Yeah.
what you put in,
Yeah.
you get back.
Well, and the thing too is nowadays people are savvy and smart and they want experiences and they want the story. So those of us who are, sweating it all the way are going to reap better benefits, and more people are going to connect to us more because of how we've done it. And it just may take us a little bit longer. That's all. But, I'm not going anywhere. This is what I want to do. So it's like, and then a part of me too, Patrick, honestly, it's like, I'm 58 and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm competing against 24-year-olds and they're like, oh, I want to sell my company by the time I'm 30. And it's like, I'm like, am I going to be doing this when I'm 70? And then a part of me is like, we were talking about this earlier, but then a part of me is like, I hope I'm doing this when I'm 70 because I love doing it. And I don't want to not do it. But the age factor is also very daunting.
Yeah. I think about time often because, we live in a time when we celebrate youth so much, and we celebrate the 15-year-old who's graduating with their second master's from Harvard. And, it makes me think about something that you said, though, because you said, that you want to celebrate women, but you really talk about women over 40, and you talk about women over 40 are better than beautiful. And when you say that, what does that mean? What is better than beautiful?
Because it's like, what is beautiful? What is beautiful? Is it your cheekbones? Is it your, blonde hair? Is it your skinny athletic legs? Or is it what's inside of you, what you've lived through? I'm going to cry. Like, what's your experience in life? That's beauty. Like, life is beautiful. And experiencing life is beautiful, and your perception of life is beautiful, and connections with people, like us speaking, face to face for the first time in years and being like, oh, hi, there you are.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Like, life experience is beautiful, and that creates something within us to then share with others. And I feel like there needs to be more of that. And I do feel like with social media and things like that, that those of us who are over 50 our voices are growing, that we're not just casted aside, that we do have value and there's beauty in value. And I want to bridge the gap between the 20-year-olds and the 50-year-olds to say, we've got something to teach you. Listen to us. We can make it easier for you. We can be that flashlight for you. And that's a beautiful thing. I think women coming together, that women, you grow up, feeling like you have to compete with women, especially the industries that I've been in acting, you're, literally competing for the same role. Real estate, which is a male driven business, fighting to be that one woman at the top. And the beauty industry, funnily enough, is really run by men. So we have a voice to say what we need and how things should be done, and how we can help those coming behind us be a little bit a smoother ride. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, connection is beautiful. And so beauty isn't just about, taut skin. It's about experience. That was a very long answer. And I think my opinion on what it is ever evolving and changing depending on, where I am at my life. But that was a very long-winded answer.
No, but and you know what? The answers do change. I'm writing a book right now about.
Of course you are.
Because I have a lot of free time. But I'm writing a book right now about change and how we have to learn to embrace plan B, plan
Mhm.
C, plan D. And one thing that as I'm writing it, I'm realizing that it's not, and you just said it really beautifully, that it's change and growth and becoming who you are is not a static point.
Mhm.
It's a point that is continually being refined, rethought, reconsidered as you learn and grow.
Yeah.
The- even in change by its nature suggests that there will be a new destination, but the new destination is not a static point. It's
Yeah.
an ever evolving point, and I think you just captured that so beautifully. I have one last question for you. I want to know who inspires you.
A lot of people inspire me. My mom, this
Mm.
is where I'm going to cry again, inspires me. She started her business when she was over 50, and she was a stockbroker in the 80s. And she became one of the top brokers in her firm. And she um, didn't have to compromise anything. She didn't have to become who she wasn't. And she is the one that got me through with my husband and my friends through cancer. Like, she flew out here, and she, as hard as she works, family is the most important thing to her. That's the thing that makes her happiest. And that's how I love being with my family. Um, and that I will always feel that is the most important thing above anything. And my friends, my girlfriends inspire me. Like, I feel like, I have friends who are lawyers and New York Times best-selling authors, and a friend who's about to go back on Broadway again. And we all are so different now, but so supportive of each other. And we've seen each other through so many things. And the other people who really inspire me are my fellow brand founders, that in the world that I'm in now, in the quote unquote clean beauty space, it's the most supportive, helpful, community built business that I've ever been a part of. And there are maybe 4 or 5 brand founders that I could call if I need help in anything, and they'll be there for me. And I'd like to hope that I'm not for them as well. So it's like the founder community. So women inspire me. And people like you, Patrick, who do these types of things. And I feel our trajectories have sort of been the same with the 3 different paths. And it's just like, and we're not done, and what you're doing, I think, is really amazing. So things like this are really inspiring.
Cynthia, thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for making time today. Um, your words
For
have,
you, anything.
thank you. Um, your words have touched my heart, and your story touches my heart. And I'm so grateful that Ed Berkeley, who is now not with us, created a space for us to come together those
Mhm.
many years ago, and that those relationships still resonate today. So I thank you for giving me a little bit of your time today.
Now I'm really crying, Patrick.
No crying, no crying.
Yeah, he gave us a family. We're family for life.
We did. We're so connected. We're so connected. To those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. Use yours wisely. Thank you. And thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Patrick.